Greetings and welcome to Community Centered, where we talk about what community is, why community matters, why you matter to community, and most importantly, how to start cultivating it wherever you are right now. I'm Ellie Whittekins, and on our last episode, we talked about excuses I specifically made in my 20s that prevented me from going out and creating community for myself, and that didn't work out very well for me because I spent nearly 10 years of my life very alone, very lonely, very isolated. Now, there was one excuse that I didn't put in that video because I wanted to do an entire video just on that. And that's what we're doing today. So today we're going to talk about the feeling of I don't have time. I don't have time to add more to what I do in a day. And that may be true for some people, but I think a lot of us make that excuse because it feels like we don't have time. And really, we just don't have the energy. So today we're going to dive into 2 time audits that I've made for myself. Just kind of show that even though I felt that way in my 20s, like I didn't have time to do anything more, I really did have the time. So we're going to dive into a time audit. I'm going to do a time audit for 2020, which was the year prior to me starting to build my community. I'm going to do one for 2023, last year, so after I've added a lot of things. Now, obviously, I'm still working on building my community. That's the great thing about it, is you're never really done. You're always finding new things to do, new friends. And so we're going to compare the two and see how much time I have gained and talk a little bit about future goals. Let's dive into it. A time audit is just a reflection of how many hours a year I spent doing various activities. Now, I had a pretty routine life in both 2020 and 2023, so it's very easy for me to look back and know kind of how many hours I spent a day or a week doing something, and I've just multiplied those out for the year. There will be some miscellaneous hours because of how I'm calculating this, which could be travel time, shopping, additional hours doing bits and bobs here and there, and I'm going to show those just so that way everything adds up, but I'm honestly not concerned about the miscellaneous hours. I'm more concerned about really seeing what I spend my time doing in ways that could be improved, and asking the question of, is that really what I want to be spending my time doing? Is that helping me in any way? Is it productive? Not all hours have to be productive, but I think sometimes when you gather it all up and you look at the number of hours, it becomes very clear that if I had to actually come up with a budget for myself, would I honestly assign that many hours to that activity in a year? The answer is probably no. We'll get to the audits and we can all judge for ourselves. So I'm just going to take my routine life and multiply out the hours. Obviously, you could keep a time journal to do this. In 2020 and 2023, I had no idea I would be doing this, so I didn't keep a journal, and I have no desire to keep a journal now. We're just gonna multiply it out with how I know my routine went. And ta-da! Here are the results of my 2 time audits. So, starting off with sleep, I sleep about 8 hours a day. I did this in 2020 and I did this in 2023. Some days I probably sleep more, some I probably sleep less, but once again, this is a little bit of an estimate, so we'll keep it simple. Work, same idea, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, didn't change between the two. And commuting to work, I commute about an hour a day, round trip, 5 days a week. Exercise, 2 hours per week, which is very low. So 104 hours. Once again, there are times that I exercise more because I'm able to get outside more and do more for exercise. I don't keep a time journal. So, and I know that there are fitness watches that will track this for you. I have no desire to wear a fitness watch. I'm not going to. So, best estimate, probably about 2 hours a week in 2020 and 2023. Now, the time with established friends that I already had, I probably get together about 6 times a year with some of my friends, probably for about, 2 hour time periods. time with family, and that includes phone calls because I don't live near a lot of my family, so phone calls are included in that, as well as visits and holidays. Book club, as I've mentioned before, I belong to a book club basically since I've moved out here, so since 2014. So that's been the same. We get together for about 2 hours every single month to discuss a book. Shopping, same idea. Now for the really fun thing, scrolling and streaming. How much time did I spend on YouTube or Pinterest or any other social media application? And you can see in 2020 it was 2,808 hours, and in 2023 it was 2,288 hours. So definitely a decrease, but definitely a lot of time. And for that, I didn't have a real simple equation that I could write out. I actually kind of wrote it out for the whole week, how many hours typically on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc., and then added for a week, multiplied by the number of weeks. So I didn't have the space to write that here, but that's how I got it. Volunteering, I went from 0 hours volunteering in 2020 to 24 hours volunteering in 2023. We'll get into more of that later. And the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, which they have a social night once a week, so that's the increase from 2020 to 2023. I joined my knitting club, I joined a Bible study, and then, like I said, I just took the number of hours I should have had in a year and subtracted what I had, so I have some miscellaneous hours. Once again, I'm not too worried about those. They're just miscellaneous hours, whether that's more shopping, more time with family and friends that I wasn't accounting for, cleaning, cooking. It really could have been anything, but I'm less worried about those. I'm more worried about the things that I am intentionally doing and intentionally spending my time on. You know, there are some things on this list that are obviously very important, like volunteering and getting together with people, and things that I find less important, like scrolling and streaming. So that was really what I was trying to get down to, of where am I really spending the majority of my hours and what am I intentionally doing. The thing that really stands out to me is the 520 hours I spent scrolling on social media or streaming shows that I have now reallocated to doing activities that I find more important, mostly social activities. And 520 hours, just to give you an idea, is the equivalent of 21 days. So that's 3 weeks of my life every single year that I have reclaimed, and I am doing something I think is more important. Like the VFW, which is the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and they are an organization that helps veterans and their families. I spend time socializing with them, but also volunteering and fundraising with them. So if you go back to the audit, I have the VFW hours, but then I also have 24 volunteer hours a year. And that's also with the VFW. So total, that's 152 hours that I spend with them. And I've been doing this for 3 years now. And if you add it all up, it's actually, over the course of 3 years, 19 days that I've spent doing something that I think is really important. And it just kind of goes to show you that a little bit at a time actually adds up to a lot at the end of the year. So if you take 1 hour of your time each week and dedicate it to doing something you find important, whether that's something as simple as catching up with a friend or talking to a family member or volunteering for something, or even taking an exercise class, over the course of a year, you end up with 2 full days worth of time that you've spent doing that activity. And it also works in reverse. If you spend 1 hour a day, every single day on social media, at the end of the year, you have 365 hours that you've spent doing it, but that is the equivalent of 15 days. Now, I'm not one that can be throwing any stones here. In 2020, my hours were 2,808 hours that I spent scrolling and streaming. I will add a caveat to that, is that a lot of times when I am watching things, I'm also doing other things like cleaning or knitting. But it's still 2,808 hours that I was absorbing entertainment. So if you take the equivalent of that, that comes out to 117 days, which is just shy of 4 months. 4 months worth of time. And it's really clear by my numbers in 2023 that I still have so many more hours that I can reclaim and be doing something more important. So let's talk a little bit about other things we can be doing. Let's be math nerds for a few more minutes here. So let's talk about what else we could be using our time for. I happened to play flute all the way through middle school and high school. So for the fun of it, I just calculated out how many hours over those 8 years I spent learning an instrument. So, and it's just classroom time because I can't really go back and calculate how much time I was spending practicing outside the classroom. But within the classroom, I spent about an hour and a half a day, 5 days a week, for 40 weeks a year for 8 years, which comes out to 2,400 hours spent learning how to play the flute, which, if you go back, is the equivalent, is actually less than my hours scrolling and streaming a year back in 2020. So if I had just spent my 20s learning how to play a musical instrument, different musical instrument a year, I would have a lot of knowledge. Not that I think any of my neighbors would have wanted to hear me learning how to play tuba at 9 o'clock at night, but you get my point. Those hours add up quick. For the fun of it, I Googled how many hours it takes to write a book. Came out with kind of a lot of different answers, but I'm going to use the number 500 because it seemed to be kind of the middle high range of how many hours you want to spend, how many hours you would spend writing a book. And that comes out to about 10 hours a week if you wanted to write a book in a year, which is doable. Now that I'm looking at a time audit, I feel like I could find 10 hours in a week to work on writing a book. Let's say for fun, I decided to up my physical activity, which was a little low at 104 hours each year. So let's say for fun, I decided to take up kickboxing and did 3 sessions a week for a 12-week period. And Googling it real fast, it looks like a session or a class is about 45 minutes each. I would have 27 hours total at the end of those 12 weeks. Alternatively, if I decided I just want to take various exercise classes throughout the year, I could do something like 2 classes a week for 45 minutes, and at the end of the year I would have 78 hours, which my body would probably appreciate a little bit more than sitting on the couch. Now, I don't plan necessarily to write a book or take up kickboxing, which does sound fun now that I'm thinking about it. But I do have plans for 2024 to continue to shift my time towards doing things that I think matter. Goal number 1 is this channel. I started this channel this year to share my story and inspire others to make changes to their lives and seek community. And it turns out it takes a lot of time and a lot of work to make a video. And we will see how much time that calculates out to being by the end of the year. Goal number 2 is to read more. As I've said before, I'm in a book club and I do read a little bit outside of the book club, but I'm really going to prioritize this year into reading more on topics that I want to learn more about that aren't necessarily a part of book club, but just things that I want to learn. Goal number 3 is cutting out the background noise. Oftentimes when I am cleaning, cooking, doing dishes, knitting, I'm also watching something. I also have a movie or a TV show or a YouTube video playing in the background. And one of the reasons that my numbers are so high for the amount of entertainment that I consume is because it's on while I'm doing those other tasks. So one of my goals this year is cut out the background noise, focus in on what I'm doing, and do some tasks quietly and just enjoy the tasks rather than needing other entertainment on at the same time, which should also really bring down my scrolling and streaming number for 2024. At the end of the day, we only get so much time, 24 hours to be precise, and we get to decide what we spend it on and who we spend it with. And we can prioritize the people and things that matter to us, and as I've shown, a little bit of effort goes a long way. I hope this has inspired everyone to take a look at what you might like to be spending your time on. And if all the math didn't scare you off, please share in the comments below what you are most excited about changing or trying. And join me here next time for further discussions on how to build your community here and now.